What's going on YouTube? Ben here, and today we're taking a look at the Sharkoon VG5-W case. Now this is a full ATX case, and the W of course stands for window, which we'll take a look at in a minute. This case is currently coming in around 30 to 35 pounds here in the UK, so hopefully it should offer some good value for the money. But you know what, let's go ahead and take a quicker look at it. On the front of the case, there's a little bit going on. Towards the top, we have two 5.25-inch optical drive bays, which can also be used for reservoirs for certain types of water cooling or whatnot, if that's your thing. Moving on down, we have a nice big power button there in the middle, right under the second bay. To the left of that, we have our audio inputs, microphone and headphone. And then to the right, we have two USB 3.0 ports, which is always handy. Those are, of course, easy to spot because they have the blue plastic on the insides. Moving on down, we have a couple places, vented areas that are going to allow us to install some fans on the inside that we'll go ahead and take a look. And we have a nice little Sharkoon logo on the bottom. Overall, the front has a bit of an edgy design to it. I think they are really trying to go for a gaming case here, so it looks quite nice to me. There's a little bit going on. It's definitely not flat and plain, which, you know, it's always nice to see different things. Removing the front panel, which is easily enough done by putting your hand under the bottom, and there's a little cutout there, you can just pull it on out, nice and gentle. We can now see that there are in fact two 120mm fans already pre-installed in the front of the case. Now these are of course going to act as our intake fans and help us get air into the case. The nice thing here is we can now see that if you want to change these fans, it's easily accessible. You just pull off the front, which is easy, and boom, you've got access to these nice fans. Moving around to what I would consider the main side of the case, you can see there is a fairly decent sized window viewing area, so we can see the components on the inside, or at least some of them. It does have a bit of a unique shape to it, but it should be nice because it'll offer a great look at whatever CPU cooler is installed in some of the graphics card, while still blocking out a good portion of the front of the case, so you can go ahead and tuck wires in there, or if there's a couple hard drives and stuff you don't want people to see, you might be able to put them in there. But we'll go ahead and take a look at that a little bit more when we open the case up in a minute. But at least there is, this does come in a non-windowed version, so if windows aren't your thing, don't worry, there's a non-windowed version waiting for you. Alright, onto the back of the case, we of course have our cutout for the rear I/O panel of the motherboard. To the right of that is a exhaust fan, which is the same type of fan as the two we've seen up front. So there's three matching fans that come included with this case. Again, for 30-35 pounds. That's great, because I mean, even if the fans are only 2-3 quid a piece, you still, then it brings the case down to like 25 quid, which is amazing. Above this fan, you can see there are a couple almost little circle indents with pluses in them. This is normally where water cooling tubes would go. Now Sharkoon have decided to mark these out, but they haven't cut the holes out, so it's up to you. They're kind of giving you the option to do it, but kind of maybe thinking that not too many people are going to want to install water cooling in and out of this case from that area. Moving on down, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 PCI expansion slots for your graphics cards, audio cards, extra USB cards, TV tuner cards, game capture cards, whatever you want to put in here. 7 slots is pretty much the norm for a regular sized case. I know some of the bigger cases do have 9 and whatnot, but yeah, 7 should be more than enough for a lot of builds being used in this case. And of course, down on the bottom, we have the cutout for the bottom mounted power supply, which of course is always a fan favorite and seems to be, again, pretty much the norm on cases these days. And quickly moving around to the last side, not a whole lot going on here, but what we can see here is it looks like there's a bit of extra room for cable management. They've kind of raised the side panel off the case, as you can see, around a good portion of it, so that will allow us on the inside of the case to have a bit thicker wires and stuff, so hopefully that'll work out well. But again, We'll take a better look at that in the video review, the final build, and of course some pictures of when the written review goes live. So that's pretty much it for the outside of the case. Let's go ahead and open this bad boy up and see what we got. Alright, so here's the inside of the case. One thing worth noting, which I already took out, is when you open it up, there'll be a little bag inside that's kind of zip tied, twist tied to one of the SSD mounting bays. It includes a 5.25 inch to 3.5 inch optical drive bay connector, so you can go ahead, if you've got card readers or whatnot, you can go ahead and get those installed. It of course includes an extra PCI blanking slot across there for the back. There's a post speaker, some screws, and a couple of zip ties, so you can go ahead and get them cables tied up out of the way. As we can see here, taking a quick look, there are, of course, on the right hand side, we have our optical drive bay mounts. Moving our way down are a couple of SSD mounts. There appears to be at least 2 or 3 of those. Working our way down, then there are 3 3.5 inch hard drive mounts. You'll also, of course, have noticed by now that the motherboard tray is red, which adds a nice little theme to the case. The LEDs on the fans are red as well, and as you can see, some of the clips inside the case have a bit of red on them as well to go ahead and set this off. Nice MSI Gigabyte Asus build in there. I mean, a lot of the companies these days do red, especially for gaming. May not be everybody's cup of tea, certainly not mine, but there's no denying that red is one of the most popular colors for some reason among gaming companies that are tech related. I mean, everything but from AMD as well. It's just so many companies to name that use red. As we can see here, the standoffs for the motherboard are already in place. So that's always one of those little things. It's not the end of the world. Some companies include them in a bag. Some companies go ahead and put them in. I like them if they're already in. It saves you a few seconds of time. And sometimes they can be a little fiddly to get in there. We'll also notice, of course, a few various cutouts around, the biggest one being for changing CPU coolers. Now, what that one on the top does is will allow users to change their CPU cooler without having to remove their motherboard from the case. There's many reasons why this is a great idea. It saves the motherboard from getting damaged. It saves a little bit of time, so on and so forth. Down the right, we of course have some the pass-through holes, so you can route your cables through the back and then bring them back to the front. So it just leaves you a cleaner looking build overall. Again, we can of course now see that the installed fan in the back does in fact match the ones on the front, as I said there. It's got the clear plastic, and it's going to have the red LEDs, which should look really good when they're illuminated, especially in darker situations. Before we end this closer look, let's go ahead and take one real quick look at the back side of the motherboard tray. Alright, so here we have it, the back side of the motherboard tray, and as suspected, that side panel that kind of bubbles out is going to be for cable management, because it's hard to see in this video right now, but there is very little room to actually route cables behind here. If that side panel was flat, you wouldn't be able to get any cables on the back side of the motherboard. So instead of making the actual case itself and the frame bigger, they've gone ahead and bubbled out the side panel, so there's a bit of room for the cables in there. You'll also notice here near some of the cutout holes to route the cables, there are little areas where you can go ahead and put zip ties in, so you can go ahead and route your cables how you want. Up towards the top right is of course going to be where our 4-pin or 8-pin CPU cable goes. On a lot of motherboards, that hole is very well, that's where the position is on a lot of motherboards, but on cases that hole is going to come in handy. Sometimes it's one of the ones that gets overlooked a little bit. It could be too small, it could not be quite in the right position. But Sharkoon seemed to have done a good job with putting it up there. They seem to have at least thought about their cable management. So hopefully it all works out. Like I said, I haven't built in it yet, so I can't tell you. So stay tuned for the final look video, which will of course feature a full build in here. I'll get my X99 system in here with a 290X so we can go ahead and test this out and see how everything looks, how the cable management is. And again, make sure to wait out for the written review. Link will be down below in the description when it's live. Big thanks to Sharkoon sending this out. Thank you guys for watching the closer look video. Always like, comment, subscribe. Feedback's appreciated, the good, the bad, negative, in between, whatever's whatever. And yeah, just stay tuned for more content in the near future. Thank you.